Good morning and welcome to the worship of God on this All Saints Reformation Halloween Sunday. We have a lot going on and it's wonderful to have you all here. As we like to say whenever we gather, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you're always welcome here. And we really do mean that. Whether you are joining us today in person or will be joining us later on in the week via video, we are so glad that you're taking the time to share your presence, your gifts, and your prayers with us. That's what makes us a community of faith. We have a number of announcements, so I will make this quick. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who showed up yesterday to be part of our trunk or treat. And a very special thanks to Jen Larson-Angelini for organizing the whole thing. We had, I think, 10 cars here with trunks that were decorated and full of candy, and we estimate that we saw somewhere between 250 and 275 kids. I know, it was fantastic. What a great showing of hospitality and joy to our neighbors here in Batavia. Next Sunday, on the 7th, we will celebrate my installation as part of the 10 o'clock worship service. Our conference minister, the Reverend Molly Carlson, will be here to represent the Illinois Conference, and she will also be preaching. It's a wonderful opportunity to connect with the larger denomination and to celebrate the ministry of this amazing congregation. So you're invited to be here for part of that celebration. We will be offering an intergenerational, educational, and artistic event on Sunday, November 14th at 11 a.m. right after this service. As we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, we'll take a moment to learn a bit about the different ways that we can pray, and we're going to make Thanksgiving prayer jars, physical objects that can help us center, be still, and bring our prayers to God. So please plan to stay after worship, not next Sunday, the 14th, for this event. Tomorrow is November 1st, and that is the deadline for three very important things that are happening here at the congregation right now. First of all, submissions to our annual Advent Devotional are due. We're looking for essays, poems, art, recipes, lists of your favorite Christmas carols, anything that might lift spirits in this holiday season. If you have anything to submit, please be in touch with Susan Price. There is still time. Tomorrow is also the deadline for the Batavia Nursery School Cake Roll fundraiser. There are 6 different flavors that are available. They're $15 a piece, and they'll be here right in time for Thanksgiving. Forms are available on the table right outside of Paxton Hall if you're interested. And finally, if you want to order one of the lovely wreaths that is being offered by our high school youth group, tomorrow is the deadline. There's a QR code on the table outside Paxton, or at least there was, right next to the cake rolls, but you can also order by following the link that went out in the e-news this week or just being in touch with Susie Daly. But that is the deadline for that as well. There's a lot more coming up, but I don't want to overload you. We'll get to those things as that comes. So that said, you are invited to breathe deeply into this moment, to settle into service, and to prepare yourselves for the worship of God with our prelude.
Please stand as you are able and join me in the call to worship. God be praised for turning seasons, the fragile wings of spring, the warm growing days of summer, the snow face of winter. God be praised for autumn with burnished days and drizzling days. God be praised for Michigan apples, school bells, pumpkin pie, cider, mints, Hubbard squash, squirrels racing among the acorns, the smell of cold and smoke, the touch of homecoming. God be praised for this time to gather the harvest in our lives, the plenty and the good. God be praised as well that we can rake up the scattering in our lives, the dried hopes and fallen dreams. We return all our bounty and gleanings to Almighty God. In all the seasons of our lives, God provides. Let us worship and give thanks. The opening hymn this morning, number 151, A Mighty Fortress is Our God. Blessed be this day. Now is our time for passing of the peace, and it's been a few years, so I think we're finally getting used to it. So I'd like to add another thought into your mind for this morning. I'd like you to think about passing of the peace as blessing one another. We could all use it. In my favorite old Celtic version of the faith, this is a day to let go of something, a past hurt, an old habit that no longer serves us. We all have them. So as you pass the peace today, do so with a blessing in your heart, a prayer that we can all let something go today and move forward with a lighter heart. So let's pass the peace. Peace be with you.
We have a treat before us today. Vicki has been practicing with the children's choir, and so they have a musical reflection for us today before Sunday school. That was fantastic. Now that's going to be in my head all weekend. As our children head down for Sunday school, and I know that they have some really exciting things to do today, Vicki will lead us in the song We Sing Them As They Go, a song of blessing.
They're already gone, so we're only going to sing it once today.
It's the moment of the service where we just take an opportunity to think about those ways that we can give to the mission and ministry of this church. We are such a gifted people, and in this season of harvest, let us remember that we have so many things that we can share with this congregation. So you are asked to just take a minute, ponder that, and also give thanks for all the things that God has given to us. Amen.
The gospel reading this morning is from Luke 19, 1 through 10. He entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man there was named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and he said, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. And all who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today's salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost."
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, for you alone, O God, are my rock and my redeemer. Amen. As I've already mentioned, today is, at least according to the official United Church of Christ desk and planning calendar, the cosmic convergence point of three very significant religious holidays. For instance, this very day is the 504th anniversary of the start of the Reformation. On October 31st, 1517, a German monk by the name of Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses on the door of Wittenberg Cathedral and gave a public and cogent voice to a complex and multifaceted theological, political, and economic movement that was sweeping through Europe at the time and has resulted in what we now recognize as Protestant Christianity in all its many forms. That action is, perhaps oversimplistically put, why we are here today. So that's one thing we could choose to celebrate on this crisp Sunday morning. Then there's the high holy day that is tomorrow. November 1st is what has been observed since at least 835 AD at the declaration of Emperor Louis the Pious and Pope Gregory IV as All Saints' Day, a day set aside to commemorate the heroes and martyrs of the faith who came before us, those who populate that great cloud of witnesses that supports us and cheers us on from all eternity. In Protestant tradition, it has become a time not just to remember and celebrate those who've been officially canonized as actual saints, but also all of those made in God's divine image that we have loved and lost. All Saints has become a day to remember and to name and to give thanks for those whose lives have formed and encouraged and touched ours in ways big and small. It's a chance for us to express our love and our gratitude to them and to God for putting them into our lives. And finally, of course, as all children and lovers of candy know, today is Halloween. Although not in recent history celebrated as a specifically Christian holiday, Halloween has deep roots that go back into Celtic Christian traditions that recognize that this world and the next are not nearly as far apart as we like to think they are, and that God's realm comes near to us in the thin places of the world, in sunrise, in sunset, in the change of seasons where the water meets the shore, in birth and in death, just to name a few. But more about all that in just a moment. So with all three of these important days colliding on the same Sunday in October, how can we possibly decide which one to celebrate? Well, the good news is we don't have to decide. We are going to be, in fact, observing all three of them today. In the first part of the service, we recognized Reformation Day by singing that great Protestant hymn penned by Martin Luther himself, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." You're just lucky I didn't make you sing it in the original German. In the last part of our service today, we will be setting aside time and space for all saints, to honor those we have loved and lost, the everyday saints who've shaped us and supported us and shared this life with us. And in between, Halloween, one of my absolute favorite holidays of the entire year. Halloween has always been a favorite of mine, and not just because of the culturally sanctioned sugar rush that inevitably comes as a direct result of trick-or-treating either. No, I also loved, and still do quite frankly, the opportunity to dress up in an elaborate costume and spend the day as someone else entirely. I was not a particularly big fan of cute or cuddly costumes like the other girls my age when I was growing up, but instead I had a real penchant for those things that were either frightening or powerful in some way. Monsters and superheroes and ghouls and villains, these were my wheelhouse. Over the years, some of my favorite costumes have included Wonder Woman, Count Dracula, Luke Skywalker, and a spooky ghost made from an old set of white sheets that my mom sacrificed to the cause. As a small child, I was prone to worry little things out of all proportion, something I'm not prone to do at all these days. And these disguises served to protect me from the invisible and unknown dangers that I knew to be out there in the big bad world. And I wore these costumes like armor and a shield. They camouflaged vulnerable little me and made me feel big enough and strong enough and maybe even scary enough to take on whatever the world had to throw at me. I didn't know it at the time, of course, but this love of masquerade was in fact in keeping with the ancient traditions that surrounded the Celtic holiday of Samhain, in which our modern celebration of Halloween has its roots. Centuries before Christianity made its way to the shining shores of the British Isles, the inhabitants of those lands, like many people around the world, observed a harvest festival each autumn. They believed that at that particular time of year, when the shadows lengthened and the leaves changed colors and fell from the trees, and the days became shorter and the nights longer, and there became a distinct chill in the air, that the thick veil that normally separated this world from the next grew thin. And that if you wanted to and you knew how, you could travel back and forth between the worlds. And they also believed that at this thin time, as they would call it, this was the perfect opportunity to gently encourage the spirits of those who had died in the previous year to pass over to the other side, rather than linger around town or the home or the family as they might be wont to do. So they would light these bright bonfires, and they would play loud music, and they'd wear costumes and masks that were meant to both protect them from the haunting spirits, but also startle those same spirits over to the other world. These masks represented frightening and powerful things and acted to protect the vulnerable humans that donned them from the forces that were bigger and stronger than they were. So you see, the tradition of wearing costumes as both armor and shield goes way, way back into human history. When Christian missionaries came to the Celtic lands, rather than try to suppress these ancient traditions, they knew that it was something that they knew would never actually fly with the Celtic people to begin with. They sort of just absorbed them into the young and growing faith. It was kind of brilliant, really. The priests who came to plant churches in this pagan land pointed out that Christians, too, believed that the souls of loved ones lived on after death, that these beloved lost should be remembered and celebrated. And they even scheduled their annual celebration of those saints and martyrs who have gone before to coincide with the Celtic annual celebration of Samhain. This tradition became known as All Saints or All Hallows Eve, shortened and elided into Halloween. And now you can put down your pencils and stop taking notes, because that ends the church history portion of our time together today. Fair warning, though, there may be a quiz. And all of this, of course, naturally and logically brings us to the biblical story of Zacchaeus, right? Because Zacchaeus, who we met today in Luke 19, 1 through 10, is doing the exact same thing I did as a kid, the exact same thing that the ancient Celts did, the exact same thing that folks throughout America are doing this very day, using a mask to disguise how small and vulnerable and terribly frightened of the world he really was. And it all goes back to his name. Although the Gospels introduce us to a lot of characters who come to Jesus seeking healing or a miracle or wisdom, you'll notice that very few of them are actually named. They're just presented as the Roman centurion, or the woman with the hemorrhage, or the rich young ruler, or the woman at the well. So when a gospel writer goes out of his way to give you the proper name of one of these characters, there's usually a pretty good reason for it. It means something. It has bearing on the story that we're about to be told. And come to find out, Zacchaeus' name does in fact tell us something very important about the nature of the little tax collector. Because Zacchaeus actually means innocent or pure. We're meant to understand from his name that he is, by his very nature, innocent and pure, clean and virtuous, guiltless and good. This may come as a surprise to those of us who have heard Sunday school lessons and sermons and even children's song about how Zacchaeus was actually a dirty, rotten sinner who stole from his own people and collaborated with the Roman Empire. But I think that we think that because that's just how good his costume was. The story Jean read to us this morning is actually about a good guy who feels small and insignificant and powerless in the face of all the big, scary things that threaten him in the world. And so to protect himself from those things, he puts on a disguise, a costume, a mask of the biggest, scariest thing he could possibly think of, a tax collector. We might chuckle at that a little bit, but because although we may not love the IRS and we don't actually enjoy paying our taxes, we do recognize that these things are necessary and are not inherently evil. But that's a modern perspective. In Roman-occupied territories of the first century, taxes were an entirely different thing. It was less about paying the government for things that would benefit the greater community, like infrastructure or health care or Social Security, and a whole lot more like giving the school bully your lunch money so you wouldn't get beat up. It was a protection racket, and Rome had no compunction about bleeding folks dry. And they did this by using middlemen from the oppressed people's own community to collect the taxes. The way these middlemen made their money then was to charge their family and their friends and their neighbors a little bit more, or a whole lot more, and take that share right off the top. So tax collectors were viewed not just as scoundrels and thieves, but also quite literally as traitors and collaborators because of what they did on behalf of Rome. They were despised, and perhaps more importantly to Zacchaeus, feared. And so that's why Zacchaeus became one of them. So this is the persona Mr. Innocent, Mr. Pure took on to protect himself from the world and from Roman brutality. The guise of the big bad tax collector. Now, it may not have been who he truly was at his heart, and it may have required him to suppress and hide his authentic self, but at least that was better than being swallowed up and spit out by the invisible and unknown dangers that were lurking out there in the world. So this is where Jesus meets Zacchaeus today, in costume, in disguise, not living his authentic life, hiding behind a terribly ugly and frightening mask. But Jesus is not fooled by his charade. He is not put off by it. When he looks at Zacchaeus, he sees Mr. Pure, Mr. Innocent, the beloved child of God that was made in the divine image and shaped and nurtured by the very hand of God, with all the beauty and all the good and all the potential that comes with that. Jesus looks at Zacchaeus hiding up in his tree, hiding behind his mask, and he knows that God loves him, and so he loves him too. And so Jesus does exactly what any other good prophet would do. He invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house for dinner. Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. And that, it seems, is all it really takes. Because in seeing him, really seeing him and calling him by his true name, the spell is broken. And Zacchaeus is called back to himself, back to the innocence, back to the purity, back to the virtue, back to the beauty, back to the inherent goodness that comes with being made in the image of God. And Zacchaeus, who before was afraid of what the world might do to him, finds the strength to be himself, and not just to face the world, but to embrace it. Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay them back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost." Lostness comes in a lot of forms, a lot of different guises, if you'll allow me that metaphor this Halloween day. It wouldn't be too hard to, like the Apostle Paul at his loquacious best, list them all out for us today. A list of the ways that we miss the mark or sin. to use that scary theological word. But at the heart of it all is, I think, the lack of authenticity that the story of Zacchaeus so beautifully and achingly illustrates. We have, each one of us, been lovingly created in the very image of our God, full of innocence and purity, goodness and beauty, virtue and sacredness. But somewhere along the way, we have lost sight of those origins, and we put on masks to disguise ourselves, to keep our small, vulnerable, gentle selves safe from a world that seems bigger and stronger and a whole lot scarier than we are. The good news of the gospel is this: that God has come to us in Jesus Christ, who put on the same small, vulnerable, gentle human flesh that we have in order to meet us where we are, to call us by our names, to call us back to ourselves, to call us home, to where we began and where we will end, the ground of our being, the very love of God. The words of the United Church of Christ Statement of Faith express this truth so beautifully, I think. In Jesus Christ, the man of Nazareth, our crucified and risen Savior, you have come to us and shared our common lot, conquering sin and death and reconciling the world to yourself. This Halloween, the kingdom of God has once again drawn near to us. We are invited to drop the act, to take off our masks, and to be our authentic, broken, beautiful, sacred selves, the ones created by God and nurtured by the Holy Spirit and sought out and saved by Jesus Christ. It takes courage to be ourselves. It takes strength. But Christ is standing beside us, and the Holy Spirit is dwelling within us, and the Creator is beckoning us toward authenticity, to integrity, to home. In the words of the author of the book of Hebrews, words that are very often read on All Saints' Day, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the freedom to be who we were actually created to be, we give thanks on this blessed, blessed day. Amen. We are entering into that part of the service where we remember those who have left us, who we love, and who we know are safely in the hands of God. So we start with a meditation on life, and you are invited to read the bolded words. O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your living Spirit remains to comfort us and give us hope. Around us is life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey.
Our life is a dance to a song we cannot hear.
Its melody courses through us for a little while, then seems to cease. Whence the melody, and whither does it go? In darkness and in light, we turn to you, O Lord, the source of life, the answer to all its mysteries.
Only this have we been taught, and in this we put our trust. From you comes the Spirit, and to you it must return. You are our dwelling place in life and death.
More we cannot say, for all else is hidden from our sight by an impenetrable veil. We thank you then for the life we have, and for the gifts that daily are our portion, for health and healing, for labor and repose, for the ever-renewed beauty of earth and sky, for thoughts of truth and justice that move us to acts of goodness, and for the contemplation of your eternal presence, which fills us with the hope that what is good and lovely will not perish. Lord, what are we? A breath, a passing shadow, yet you have made us just a little less than divine. Lord, what are we? that you have regard for us.
What are we
that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures."
Lord, you have been our refuge in all generations.
Before the mountains were born, or earth and universe brought forth, from eternity to eternity, you are God. For 1,000 years in your sight are but a yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. The number of our years may be many or few, yet vain toil fills their span, for it is soon ended and we fly away. So teach us to number our days that we may grow wise in heart.
Let your servants understand your ways, and your children see your glory. Let the beauty of our eternal God be with us, and may our work have lasting value.
Oh, let the work of our hands be enduring. We continue with an anthem from our chancel choir today. We continue with our service of remembrance. I've set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. O God, this hour revive in us memories of loved ones who are no more. What happiness we shared when they walked among us. What joy when loving and loved we lived our lives together. Their memory is a blessing forever.
Months or years may have passed, yet we feel near to them. Our hearts yearn for them. Though the bitter grief has softened, a duller pain abides, for the place where they once stood is empty now forever. The links of life are broken, but the links of love and longing cannot break.
Their souls are bound up in ours forever. We see them now with the eye of memory, their faults forgiven, their virtues grown larger. So does goodness live and weakness fade from sight. We remember them with gratitude and we bless their names. Their memory is a blessing forever.
We remember as well the men and women whom but yesterday were part of our congregation and community. To all who cared for us and labored for the well-being of our people and of humanity, we pay tribute. May we prove worthy of carrying on the tradition of our people and our faith, for now the task is ours.
Their souls are bound up in ours forever. In gratitude for all the blessings of our loved ones, our friends, our teachers, and the martyrs of our people have brought to us, to our people, and to humanity, we dedicate ourselves anew to the sacred faith for which they have lived and died, and to the task they have bequeathed to us. Let them be remembered for blessing, O God, together with the righteous of all people. In their names, let us say,
we will remember and never forget them. As a community of faith and love, may we join as one, as together, and say,
Amen. We will now light a candle and ring a bell for the names of those members of our community and our families that we have loved and lost. Agnes Bernabe. Chris Brom. Ruth Burnham. Mary Kathy Gehring. Bobby Gerbrecht Grayson. Anita Graves. Kyle Xavier Greenfield. William N. Hall. Heather Howeiler. Mary L. Johnson. Jeanette Lussow. Vi Rasmussen. Elaine Schimmelfennig. Joanne Smith. Daryl Schrail. Jacqueline Jackie Ullman. Now, if there are any that you are carrying in your hearts today who have not been named in our bulletin, but you would like us to remember today, simply say their names out loud. We will light a candle and ring a bell.
Geraldine Dowd. Carl Flass. Ellen Hamilton.
We continue with a short litany of remembrance. May God remember forever all our dear ones who have gone to their eternal rest. May they be at one with the one who is life eternal. May the beauty of their lives shine forevermore, and may our lives always bring honor to their memory. Everlasting to everlasting, thou art God.
As we remember these, our brothers and sisters in faith, we remember the light of your Spirit that was within them. That same light burns with us this day. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them.
In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them.
So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved ones who've entered eternity. Master of mercy,
let them find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let their souls be bound up in the bonds of eternal life.
Our eternal God is their inheritance. May they rest in peace. Amen. Amen. We have other joys and concerns that we wish to share as part of this congregation. So as we gather together today, we continue to pray for Bill Price. We ask that God will be with Katie Jones. We hold in our thoughts and prayers Jamie Bridger. We ask that God will be with Sean Osterby. We ask that God will be with John. We hold in our thoughts Lori Jackson and baby Warner. We continue to pray for Vicki Woolley. And we ask that God will be with Tom Alexander, who's in the hospital at this time. If your hearts are willing, let's pray together. God, the great creator of the universe, you are as near to us as our very next breath, but also as distant as the farthest star. We come to you today with a lot to hold together. We celebrate the Reformation of the church. We remember those who have passed on and celebrate their names and their lives. We gather together to recognize that life is short, but that you hold us in the palm of your hand. I ask today that you will simply bring comfort to all of those who are grieving, whether it is a recent loss or one ages ago. Time doesn't matter when the heart is involved. And so I simply ask that you will be of comfort and remind us always that we belong to you and are safe in your hands. As we gather today, we continue to pray for those whose names are part of our bulletin. We ask that you'll be with Bill. We hold before you Katie. We ask that you hold Jamie, walk with Sean, be with John, bring health and well-being to Laura and baby Warner, that you'll be with Vicki, and that you'll hold Tom. We also carry with us joys and concerns in our hearts that we have not given voice to, and so we simply turn those over to you, knowing that there's no better or safer place for them to be. We ask all of this in your name, and it's your word made flesh and his prayer that we pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Amen. Our closing hymn for today is that great one for All Saints' Day, For All the Saints. You can find that on 767 in your hymnal if you'd like to follow along. And we are singing all verses because Vicki said so. So I invite you to stand as you are able. Just a couple things as you leave today. If you had the name of a loved one and would like to be able to take their candle home as a reminder of today's service, you are invited to come up after worship, blow out the candle, and take it with you so that you can keep that with you. And also, it's All Saints, and so on the way out today, I am going to vigorously ring our church bell as a celebration of this community and those who have gone before. Now, as you go forth today, go in great confidence, for the God of the universe holds you in the palm of his hand. That God goes before you, guiding you along the way. That same God walks behind you, guarding you on this path. God walks beside you, your constant companion on life's journey. God is the solid ground beneath your feet and the glory of the skies. But most importantly, in the work of Jesus Christ, God goes within you. So go forth today and shine. Amen. You may be seated for the postlude.